Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers. Right?
No judging.
Yeah.
No judging.
The millennials are really changing that.
Is charm. No.
All success begins with desire.
I feel like I'm on fire right now.
OMG, baby, tell them.
Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers. Justin Fox, Mark Simon. Mark, thank you very much for joining me on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Justin.
Awesome. So I'll jump right in. So Mark, you are a corporate lawyer with Miller's Law. Basically, you assist clients with business development and asset management matters. So we'll keep it very simple. Corporate lawyer. Tell us. So you and I have talked. I think it's kind of an interesting story. A little bit about. Let's go back to before you were a lawyer. Let's go back to high school days. You were a football player.
Yeah, that's what I was known for in high school anyway.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think it's sort of interesting, the paths you've chosen. So let's go right back to high school. Give us a little bit about your sports career and where that led you.
Yeah, so I mean, I come from a very athletic family. Everyone's kind of into sports. I realized fairly early on I wasn't as much of a finesse guy as other people were. So I started picking sports where blunt force trauma was the goal. So I was a rugby player, a football player. I wrestled, all that kind of stuff early on. Very kind of heavy-handed sports, combat sports.
Right. Well, you're a big guy, right? What, 6'1"?
Yeah, about 6'1", 240 on a bad day.
There you go. So yes, so you can definitely handle your own in those combat sports. So you went from that into, you didn't go into university, correct? You played. Give us the lowdown there. Yes. Yeah.
So I did kind of a lot of soul searching when I transitioned from high school to university as far as sports goes. Football was kind of my main thing. I was a linebacker. That was, everything else was an off-season sport. Football was the big deal.
Right.
I went to Laurier for my undergrad, great football school. They had an excellent program at the time, but I did a lot of thinking and said, you know what, I'm not going pro in this. Maybe I should focus on school. So I backed off. Still have some latent regrets about that. I really should have played OUA ball, I think. Right. But hindsight's 2020. But I was a fighter at the time, so I really got into Muay Thai, a little MMA, but mostly kickboxing type stuff. That's cool. So tell us a little bit about that experience, because we're talking like in that sort of early 2000s, mid 2000s timeframe, right? When mid 2000s when it was starting, where I really picked it up. Right, that was kind of like the early days of UFC, right? So was there kind of an inspiration from that, or what kind of drove you towards that? I mean, I had been into like traditional boxing from a fan perspective before that. Okay. Obviously, or maybe not so obviously, but my parents weren't that keen on me getting boxing. Into it, so, right. Okay. Yeah. It's like off I go. They kept saying I didn't have the nose for it. Right. Yeah. Well, busted too many times. Yeah. Exactly. But I got the opportunity to kind of stretch out towards the end of high school and get in some recreational classes, get a little more competitive, that kind of thing. And sort of got inspired from the boxing end of things, but found some more Muay Thai or North American style kickboxing opportunities and trained with that. And just kind of loved it. I think it really gave me some perspective. So, I mean, the workouts are brutal. Anyone who's done that kind of sport, right. It's another monster. Wrestling is kind of close if you're doing a lot of kind of sparring type stuff, but right. It also gives you a lot of confidence, not just like, hey, I can handle myself, I'm a tough guy sort of thing. That gets weeded out fast because everyone's tougher than you when you first start. Right. But just if I'm dealing with a difficult situation outside of my fighting life, it's not as scary as some very intimidating person, punching me in the face repeatedly. Right. So, tough day at work is really perspective. Puts things into perspective for sure. Yeah, 100%. Cool. So let's, I want to talk a little bit about that stretch. I mean, a lot of people, team sports, for me, sports was a large part of my childhood growing up.
played many sports. So I think sort of to transition, that's what I want to talk a little bit about, because I don't have always the most backstory on a lot of people that jump on. So I definitely wanted to get into that sort of your thoughts, but wanted to transition from sports, and you kind of did that into the real world, right? Where do you think, because I think we can talk about law and corporate law, and we'll get into a lot of that stuff, but where do you think playing sports, or how do you think, or why do you think, who, what, where, when, why do you think sports are important for children or youth, or activities in general? Like where do you think, do you have like a thought process on where that maybe plays into your career, what you do? You mentioned sort of your ability to kind of your resiliency, but like what, or maybe your ability to kind of stand up to things. Where do you see that? What are your thoughts on that? Not to throw you a curveball.
No, I totally get it, actually.
Literally and figuratively, and no pun intended, curveball. But yeah,
go
ahead. Where does sports fit in, in the real world?
Well, this is something that I've thought about a lot, and I think the clearest link for me, is between kind of the team sports environment and working as a group, particularly a high functioning group.
Right.
So I was lucky enough to be kind of a captain in my football team growing up. I was sort of a leader in that context. But it gave me kind of a perspective on the sort of leader-subordinate relationship, right, and how that, if you're dealing with a tough situation, middle of a football game, maybe pouring rain, I got to get the defense to do a goal line stand or something, motivate everyone. You can't just, talk down to everyone, get mad at everyone. You have to be a captain. And I think, at least from my perspective, that is one of the most effective management styles, is don't consider yourself, looking down at everyone or above everyone. You should be in the middle of it with everyone and act as more of a captain than someone just giving orders and saying, do this, do this, do this. And I found I get a pretty good response from any of the lawyers and clerks that I've worked with, who have, worked in a position where I'm the leader in that particular situation. They understand that they can give me their input. They understand that we're all on the same team. We're all acting as part of the same team. But at the same time, they understand I'm the captain. So, I'll consider what they're saying, make a decision. Everyone moves forward from there. I've worked in other situations where I've been under other leaders that do not have that perspective. Right. And there tends to be a lot of, latent insubordination. People don't like working for that person. They don't feel any kind of relationship with that person. So I think the biggest thing, especially from team sports, is that human interaction, understanding, hey, maybe we're all part of a stressful circumstance. How best do you manage that? Right.
I think, you're sort of going from the management angle, but I think it's also, even if you're just all sort of equal, right, on the team, it gives you the ability to work in an environment where maybe it's not so hierarchical, but, sort of flatline, right? So you've got that ability to, respect each other, play for each other, and kind of work hard for each other. So yeah, I agree. Sports is definitely integral to a well-rounded childhood, I would say, which is sort of, I feel is lacking a little bit, or I see it. It's tough to say. Like, I had a conversation, and this is sort of different, but had a conversation with somebody about kids that are sort of 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old right now, and the lack of socialization they're getting from being basically shut in, for the past year and a half, and sort of, we were joking, my wife and I, it'd be interesting to see 20 years from now, the ramifications of, what's happened with COVID, and not so much only COVID, but the advent of, gaming and sort of all these other aspects, right? I think you're sort of the age where you still maybe went out and played some road hockey, right? It wasn't all about sitting at home doing online gaming, right? So it's definitely it'd be interesting to see how that shift, that, when the 20 somethings start getting into the world and how they can interact, right? Having grown up basically gaming, right?
Yeah. So I was split. I was on the cusp. I was probably the Super Nintendo generation,
right?
Big when I was very young,
right?
And I spent enough hours indoors.
Yeah, I'm not saying. I had Nintendo. Don't get me wrong. I had the original Nintendo, when I was maybe 7 or 8. But I mean, we didn't spend 24/7, in gaming, right? It was like still went out and played road hockey, still were out till the streetlights came on, kind of, thought process, right? And then come home and, only for dinner kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I have been concerned about that, especially, given kind of the lockdowns in COVID and the lack of socialization. I did have kind of a good moment yesterday to give me a little bit of hope. So my nephew was born December 2019.
Okay.
So he has been
COVID.
locked down his entire life.
Right.
Year and a half.
Yeah.
So he's toddling around, and we had our first. I have a large family on my mother's side. We had our first big backyard barbecue yesterday.
Right.
And I was thinking, okay, my little nephew, how's he going to deal? Because there's a lot of people, a lot of new people. And he got right into it. It was fantastic to see. Awesome. So he's playing with my cousins. They're kicking the ball around, just started doing it immediately. Yeah. So it made me think, okay, kids are a little more resilient than maybe I'm giving them credit for internally, but it's also still something to track, and something that my sister's been, wants to take him to the park, wants him to see other kids, that kind of thing.
Right. So she's been top of mind for her, for sure.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are having kids now, especially with the lockdowns, they're realizing, okay, this is an important thing I need to pay attention to and learn, have my child learn that their relatives aren't just digital, they're real people somewhere.
It's not just a Zoom face, right? Yeah. There's more to it than your what do you call it? Like your FaceTimes or whatever on your phone, right? Or WhatsApp calls. Cool. Okay. Well, let's transition into corporate law. So you went to Laurier, I think, I looked at it, sorry, Windsor? Did you do law at Windsor?
Windsor was law school.
Okay. So Laurier, then Windsor. And that was what, maybe like 5 years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago? How long have you been practicing?
I am into my third year of practice. I had articles before that. So
okay.
Yeah, 3-4 years ago.
3-4. Okay, cool. So corporate law, what did you take at Laurier? Just out of curiosity. Everything. So BA or like what was your...
Sorry, I thought you were going to go Windsor. I jumped in ahead of time. So I did a BA in philosophy at Laurier, and then realized I needed to probably do graduate work to earn some money. Okay. So then I did an MBA at Laurier, which was an awesome experience. And then decided I wasn't done. Then I did a master's in philosophy. Worked for a little bit, and then went off to law school. Okay,
so so that was many years of school. How many years of schooling is that? So you got what? You got a BA or Bachelor of Philosophy. What is your degree?
BA, just
BA, and then you got an MBA.
Yeah.
And then you've got a Master's of Philosophy.
Yeah, MA in philosophy.
MA, Master in Philosophy, and then you've got your law degree.
JD,
so lots of schooling then. Okay.
Little alphabet soup. Yeah, it was 11 years worth, I think.
And hence, hey, that's what we see behind you, right? All the
there's a few of them up there.
There you go.
All the Laurier ones are beside me here.
There you go.
I got a couple more on that wall too.
Okay, there you go. Awesome. That's cool. So I'm going to go a different direction. I like this actually. We can talk about law, and we'll talk a little bit about, what entrepreneurs need to do and some of the things they'll focus on. That's kind of where we'll go at the end. What are your thoughts on education and where it's going? I'll throw another literary curveball, but I think you've got the degrees and you've got the thought process, philosophy, business, legal. Like, what are your thought processes on maybe where education's going, where it's been, and where you think kind of, you've seen the rumblings, right? Education's not valuable is sort of the one camp. You've got sort of obviously the other. There's different camps, right? I'm not saying I have an MBA. I've done a little bit of schooling. I had a BA or a BPhD, Bachelor of Phys Ed, and an MBA. But so I believe in schooling. I believe in traditional schooling. But the way the world's moving, like, what are your thoughts on sort of where things go? You've obviously got the degrees. You see the value in them. Where do you see it going? Let's put your philosophy hat, your legal hat, and your business hat all on.
Yeah. So, it might go in a different direction than I think it ought to go. Okay. So that's the first.
Okay. So where do you think it ought to go? I guess let's see. And where do you think it will go?
So I think traditional education, and maybe I'm biased because I'm so invested in it, given all the
Right.
paper,
Right.
but I think traditional education can still be valuable. And even the types of education that people are saying, there's no ROI, right? Like a history degree, English degree, philosophy degree, people are saying, I can't get a high paying job because of it, or I'm struggling because of it. Any of the classical studies, I guess,
Right.
might be, and I mean, that's where a lot of the complaints come from. It's how much money did I pay to university in order to get this thing that's not going to make me any money? I can work at Starbucks now or something like that. I think it's a combo deal. So it's a matter of businesses understanding the value that comes from some of that education and like picking
Right.
out. So it's not straight like, hey, I can analyze a balance sheet now, like you would get with a BBA or accounting,
Right.
education. But for instance, like the problem solving skills that you're taught in philosophy, I don't see that in a ton of other areas. So you learn things like argumentation, reasoning, and formal logic. And I've always found that even when I just got to my MBA, I was quickly able to solve complex issues once someone gave me the basics of how that area of business worked. So I was able to kind of extrapolate very quickly based on that education. And I can see that being very valuable to a business. So half of it is businesses trying to identify, okay, what skills are coming out of these maybe undermarketed degrees. And then, hiring people, giving them the right training, and then putting them in a position where they can use those skills. The other half of it is marketing that education. Now, if the minimum requirements for a job are you need X, Y, and Z, and you just don't have those, then that makes it tough.
Right.
But trying to kind of push and say, hey, the value of what I did in my VA is this. Do you need someone to write copy randomly? Like, because I have an English degree, I can actually do some of those things,
right? Articulate thoughts and put it into grammatically correct sentences, right? That people can understand, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. And just kind of, or even analysis of written word and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, you don't necessarily need the hard technical knowledge right out of school.
Right.
I mean, in law, it's like, they teach you how to figure stuff out in law school, and then they say off you go. And someone,
it's a lot of reading though, right? It's a lot of reading and like analyzing sort of like previous precedents or kind of different.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of bulk reading. And for a lot of people, it's very dry. If you want to get into corporate law, be prepared to read a lot of contracts and try to find a way to enjoy it.
It's funny. I had a person on actually just posted a video. Her name was Sheila, great guest, couple days ago. She said that she is a speed reader, and so I always joked when I was a kid. A buddy and I used to see this commercial, like an infomercial on TV. So again, probably giving away the age, but back in the 90s or 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, 90s. And it was about speed reading, and she was saying she could read a whole book in one night. Sorry. And I was thinking, if I could have done that in my studies, that would have made things so much easier. But are you a quick reader, speed reader at all, or?
I was notoriously slow at reading for a very long period of time, which was fine for philosophy because, my readings would be like 3 pages, but you'd have to read them like 8 to 10 times to get anything out of it. It's so like dense.
Yeah.
I had to figure out how to get around that in, first of all, my MBA, because they'd say, okay, read, 1, 3, 5, 8, and 9 for next Wednesday. And we'd be like, oh, pages? No, chapters.
Chapters,
Chapters, read
30, 40 pages each chapter, right? It's like, yeah.
So that was a rude awakening, and I had to find a way to kind of read faster. And then law school was that on steroids. It was, here's several hundred pages worth of material, find all the important bits so we can talk about it 2 days from now.
Right.
So I'm getting a lot faster, and just because it's part of my day-to-day work, I'm constantly reading, hundreds of pages of documents. It's building up muscle like anything else. So I'm getting better at it. I don't have any of those speed reading techniques though. Those I think I tried to figure it out at some point in time, but I can't do it. I'm
cool.
Doing it the old fashioned way.
Yeah. Same. So, okay. You mentioned where you thought education was going versus where you wanted to go. So we talked about the value of a traditional education. where do you think it's going? Where do you think the education sort of is going?
So, I mean, I think the whatever path of least slash most resistance at some point is going to be, people fighting against the traditional educational stream, saying, I don't want to do that. I don't want to pay money for that. So I'm just going to find alternate methods, self-education, or open source materials online. I mean, there are a ton of great ways to learn information that way. And I mean, if you look at, let's say you want to learn coding, you can do a lot of that.
Even things like
fantastic ways.
Udemy, right? Or like sites like that where you can get some of their, discounted maybe for $20, right? You can get like a full, 20, 30 hours of education for $20-$30, right? Of coding, for example. I mean, I actually used it myself. Been going through a course on Udemy for coding in Angular and Node.js and a couple other things, right? So yeah, it's, I mean, that's, but so do you see, and I don't want to go too much into it because I want to talk about corporate law, but do you see formal educational institutions changing their business model? I see it already there is, but do you see them really wavering over to the other side, or where do you see that break? Because I think there's going to be a break, my opinion, as Michael, who we both know, says, onemansopinion.com, is that the traditional institutions, many will either find a way to adapt or many will go by the wayside. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be kind of a market balancing process, right? So, people are identifying, hey, the ROI I'm getting on my history degree, philosophy degree isn't what I want it to be.
Right.
There are other skills that I can learn that'll make me money.
Right.
So if I, put money towards that, we're going to end up with like more privatized education in particular technical skills.
Right.
So then you'll see universities either say, oh, there's money to be made in the market there. We're going to do, a quick 1 year on something. Right. So I saw a lot of different programs coming out in business schools. There's always like an MFin tech or like masters in all kinds of different things that are specific, usually, geared towards a specific industry or something like that.
Right.
Or, masters in entrepreneurship or something to give you those skills.
Right.
Might be worth putting the money in to have that kind of niche education and then not worry about the rest of it.
Right.
So, I mean, if that's a viable market path, then universities are going to hopefully see it and say, okay, we need to get in on that,
right,
in order to not lose a ton of market share to other privatized areas. And then it'll be, what's the value of the credential? Where does it come from? So if we have a big private entity saying, hey, all our people are, trained at this level, they're very high quality, and everyone in the market accepts that, that's a huge problem for the universities, which said, okay, all that market share just disappeared. So
for sure.
I mean, I think that'll probably be where it goes. But I really hope people don't stop learning like the classic, materials in, English, history, philosophy, because there are so many skills that are just kind of like under-marketed or misunderstood from those fields. And I think the overall economy, business world would be worse off without that kind of education happening.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not so much skills that you learn; it's just ideas and thoughts and ways of thinking. You talked about sort of philosophy, like being able to logic and reasoning and looking at the way maybe somebody deduced or logically reasoned something out 1,000 years ago, maybe in a completely different context. So, So, well, let's talk quickly a little bit about corporate law, and then we'll wrap it up. Corporate law, you got into corporate law. What is it that you guys do at Miller's that you can help an entrepreneur with?
So I like to describe what I do, like personally and within kind of the Miller's business here, as I do the preventative medicine end of business law, or any kind of asset management. So I also do real estate, wills and estates, that kind of thing. But I try to make sure it's, as clean and efficient to make sure that there's not serious problems in the future. So the idea is you pay me less so you don't have to pay one of our litigators more.
Right.
So if you get a sloppy contract or don't, clearly agree to things with your shareholders, then you might have to call the surgeons, which are the litigators, to sort out the serious problem because you let it fester and now it's a big issue. What we do for an entrepreneur who wants to kind of get ahead of the game is we provide strategy and then setup services to make sure all parts of the business are going to be running nice and clean. We do all the contract review. Basically, it's almost like insurance against something going horribly wrong later. So all the employment stuff, set up of the corporation, shareholders agreements, kind of anything that you could think of that would be a legal issue for the business. We can either do it before, which I would highly recommend doing, but that's also specifically my area of the business. Or after, if you need to litigate it, we've got some very talented litigators here that'll also fix the problem for you, but that tends to be a little bit more expensive.
Yeah. So, okay, let's, so we're obviously going to work together on sort of the backer stuff, and we're going to sort of build out a couple of things with everyone that's kind of walking through the backers program. So anyone that's watching that's looking to raise capital is going to be jumping on the backers platform. We're probably going to be you're going to be working alongside with Mark as well, sort of going through some of the process, depending on what stage they're at, right? Kind of getting that foundation built. So we'll continue that conversation. I'd love to actually get you on for more of a very technical call, maybe a step-by-step. Maybe we could do like here's the 10 things you need to do. I know you're putting together sort of a list for what we were talking about. Here's sort of the 10 things that you need to do, whatever, from 8 to whatever, 1 to 10 when you start your business, right? Sort of to get it, the foundation structured. So we could maybe set up call number 2 on that. We'll do another recording on that. But I'll end it here, Mark. Really appreciate you joining me on the call. Usually ask everyone one sort of piece of advice, one word that you would give to a younger Mark or a younger person, maybe coming up through the educational system, maybe starting out as a lawyer, whatever that realm that you think. What's that one word or one piece of advice that you would give to somebody?
I think the piece of advice I would definitely give to myself, and I've given it to other lawyers that I've mentored and stuff like this before, is don't take yourself too seriously. And Phil Miller, the principal of our firm, this is one of his tenets. He's instilled it in everyone, but too much of a problem in the legal profession. There's a ton of egos. Everyone thinks it's the most important thing ever. Right. You gotta step back from that a little bit. You gotta don't take yourself too seriously and do a much better job for your clients. Right. The best thing or the advice that came to me that got me thinking about that was my stepfather's a PhD in business. He was doing his dissertation and he'd get this anxiety before he's meeting with his supervisor because he didn't have enough work done or something like that, had a really hard time meeting with him. Anyone who's been in that kind of situation probably has the same thing going on. Right. And at one of the meetings, the supervisor notices he's nervous about it. And I think this is me paraphrasing, but he looks at him and says, John, I don't want to bruise your ego here, but I don't think about you when you're not in my office. Right. Like he's working himself up and it's a big problem. It's like this supervisor doesn't go home and stew about you not doing enough work. Right. Just relax, go do the work. You'll be fine. Right. And I think that's, don't build it up on yourself. It's just going to be a problem. Just don't take yourself too seriously. Get it done.
Cool. I like it. Don't take yourself too seriously. Enjoy life. My new one is just enjoy the journey, right? The ups and downs will come. Just, don't take it so seriously. Like you said, don't take everything home or to heart or, all of those things. Awesome. Well, Mark, really appreciate you joining me. Everyone obviously can connect with you on LinkedIn, Mark Simon. Also, what's Miller? What's the website? Are you on TikTok?
Miller's. I am not, but should be. I should really get on.
Start getting on there. Yeah,
I know.
I ask everyone, but so Miller's Law, what's the website?
Yeah, millerslaw.com.
Okay.
MILLARS.
ARS, right, exactly.
.com.
Okay.
Yeah, millerslaw.com. Yeah, perfect.
millerslaw.com. Cool. And soon to be seen Mark Simon on TikTok. Awesome. Mark, appreciate it. Everyone else, this is One Take, powered by backers, Justin Fox, Mark Simon. I will see you guys again very soon. Bye. Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers. Right?
No judging.
Yeah.
No judging.
The millennials are really changing that.
Is charm. No.
All success begins with desire.
I feel like I'm on fire right now.
OMG, baby.